Hello, everybody. Good evening. This is Kate Roberts, and I am the founder and CEO of The Body Agency, and I'm also the host of the podcast Sex, Body, and Soul. And we have a very, very special guest joining us, and I'm just about to let her in. Her name is Ashley Judd. You will know her from many of the movies that she has made. Yes, and Ashley, you have to ask to be admitted in. So you should be able to join now. There you are. I love it when technology works.
Isn't it exciting?
It's so exciting because it so fails for me every single time. So when it works. Ashley, you're such a trooper joining us tonight. How are you feeling? Can you hear me? Oh, yeah, I thought I'd juju it up a little bit. Trying to keep it colorful.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.
Everyone
okay,
wants
thanks.
to see you, Ashley.
Yeah.
You're blocked. Yeah.
So let me tell you, as one would think that I would have one of those ring lights, that I would have a stand, none of which I have. So I'm going to be holding my phone, which is partially charged. That's what a semi-professional at all of this I am. But thank you for letting me know. I did set some flowers to compensate for my otherwise lack of accoutrement, but I do have some daffodils.
Oh, well, we love the daffs. We love the daffs, and I know that you love them too.
Yes.
Ashley, first of all, we should let everybody know what we're doing here. I have just introduced myself, and I would like the pleasure of introducing you. Now, obviously, we all know Ashley Judd, but you might want to ask, what is Ashley Judd doing on the Sex, Body, and Soul podcast? Well, my friends, first of all, so many of you have listened to it. Thank you so much. You know that usually I have doctors and medical providers on the show. And I have been waiting to invite Ashley on because there is nobody that knows more about these issues than my friend Ashley Judd. So it was so relevant to bring Ashley on, being a humanitarian, having risked her life also all over the world doing this work. And we really wanted to tell the story. And the podcast is in two parts. We've only done one so far, and we're going to talk about more of the subjects that are on the podcast tonight. Ashley, I've already got like 1,000 questions that people have asked, so I don't quite know how we're going to get through them, but most of them are sending everyone's love to you. So I hope you're receiving it. Ashley, go ahead.
So I just want to say, I do see in the comments, so I'm in rural Middle Tennessee, and this is the best internet connection that is afforded to us. And you can imagine how terrible it was for kids who were out of school in the pandemic and trying to do their schoolwork. So I apologize. I understand the audio is very good. So let's know that we can hear each other well. But this is the best video that we have here in our area. And it's unfortunately not that great. So I do apologize.
Oh, well, thank you for that, Ashley. The audio is good enough. Ashley, I first wish to acknowledge you, the incredible work that you've done. But I also wanted to just say thank you for believing in me and allowing me to show you my world and really engaging as you have. You have absolutely changed my life and the life of many, many others. So thank you.
You are a bright and bold voice, Kate. You always have been. From your work on HIV/AIDS in Russia and Eastern Europe, and walking into PSI and saying, hey, I used to sell tobacco, cigarettes, and chewing gum to adolescents. I can sell reproductive and sexual health and rights.
Yeah. Well, we've certainly had some adventures together and been all over the world, seen a lot. And of course, I really want to acknowledge your book, which has we named our podcast after the book. And it really is a terrific book. And I would have to say that most of these photos here, I either took or I have experienced the programs. And, you know, Ashley, first of all, the forward is from Nicholas Kristof, the renowned Nicholas Kristof. You have Bono and Madeleine Albright writing about you. And I just wish to read this from Bono because it just says it all as far as I'm concerned about you. Rarely has such a heart been twinned with such a head, hallelujah, analytical of every troubled corner of the world, as well as her own soul. I've worked with Ashley Judd as an activist, and she's a force of nature who can take on any disasters put her way. Her grace is her not so secret weapon. Bono. And that to me says everything. And I flash back, Ashley, to a gala that you and I hosted together where Bono came and presented a Youth AIDS Award to Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. And he got up and just did the most incredible speech. And I'm sure you're used to getting such accolades, but I certainly am not. So that is something that will really remain in me, to have worked with such an incredible man. And I should say that you should all read the book. Ashley has graciously, we're going to be doing a giveaway of Ashley's book. And if you send, and it's signed as well. And if you send us your email address in the DM of the Body Agency, we'll be sending out a number of books. So please do that. And thank you, Ashley, for sharing those with us. Ashley, I feel like we need to kick off with what's happened in the Ukraine yesterday, where a maternity hospital was bombed. Now, I've been glued to the news. I'm sure everybody has been. Now, you were there in the Ukraine with an organization that you were also an ambassador for, UNFPA. I mean, can you imagine being in hospital, either giving birth or having given birth or have kids in the ICU or babies in the ICU? It's just horrendous.
Yeah. So giving birth and creating life is so sacred and so vulnerable. And UNFPA, which is the United Nations Family Planning Agency, which seeks to give dignity to sexual and reproductive health and rights, and focuses on maternal health and infant survival, is with the women of Ukraine now. UNFPA has stayed during the war, and approximately 400 women have given birth in Ukraine in the subways and in shelters and in basements and in these makeshift clinics that UNFPA has helped set up. And, you know, I don't want to use exaggerated words or overstate things in a way that, you know, politically sets people on edge. But what is bombing birth but perhaps a form of genocide and an erasure of life, you know, an erasure. Stop at the very beginning, the existence of a people's. It's morally egregious. It's appalling. It's seemingly unthinkable, and the unthinkable has happened. And that's why I am so glad that UNFPA is there doing its very best to protect the safety and the dignity of pregnant women. And everyone can go to unfpa.com and read about the work. I've pulled up, you know, what it is that we're doing. We're doing everything from helping women manage their periods because they don't have access to period hygiene during this. You know, can you imagine having your period all over yourself in the middle of this? And, you know, helping with midwives and skilled birth attendants, doctors, pharmacists, counselors, outreach workers, youth coordinators, guards, and ambulance drivings. I'm reading from something, training frontline health personnel with basic that are often a part of the war zone. Mm-hmm. So we're obviously doing our psychosocial support for women who are affected by violence, and providing cash assistance, digital or in hand, to women on the move so they can prioritize their immediate needs with food and water and shelter and other supplies. And we have these dignity kits, with specialized hygiene supplies for pregnant and breastfeeding women.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. And I think, we all feel so helpless here. And of course, it's great that we can just do something as simple as donating a kit. We are actually
a dignity kit, yes.
Yes. And at the Body Agency, we're also donating first period kits that are packed full of reusable period wear that you can, just wash. So in times of disaster like this, those types of products come in very, very handy. So definitely everyone who's listening, please try and do something for the Ukraine. It is just inhumane. So Ashley,
and let me just also add, if UNFPA is not your cup of tea, there's also something called direct donor action, which goes to women who are on the ground helping other women, and there's no intermediary, just like there's no intermediary with UNFPA. But direct donor action is something that I robustly support, and they're on the ground in Afghanistan, they're on the ground in Yemen and Syria, but their work in Ukraine right now is essential. So that's an alternative if UNFPA isn't something that inspires you right now.
Okay. So Ashley, let's move on to your own service and the work that you have done. So, you and I started working together, almost 20 years ago, and you have just developed as a humanitarian. You've been all over the world. You and I have trailed through slum dwellings and brothels and schools and colleges and hospitals. And you have done an incredible job of telling the stories of people that you have met to change legislation and to really raise the media on HIV and sexual reproductive health access to contraception. And you've also, and we've done this together, met with a lot of survivors in these developing countries. And I recall a trip that we did to Thailand, and we had just met with some young girls who had been trafficked into a brothel, and it was very, very hard to hear their stories. After that meeting that we had, you told me about Harvey Weinstein, and that was, that must have been about 12 or 13 years ago. And I remember saying to you, you have to tell this story. You have to talk. That was the beginning of you really exposing him. Can you tell us a little bit about the journey of bringing this monster to justice?
Sure. Well, first of all, let's go back to Pattaya and tell people a little bit about the brothels in Thailand. And first of all, it's a humbling privilege and it's an honor to sit with victim survivors and to be able to be granted their trust and their friendship. And I'm so, I feel distraught, and yet there's a real sacredness about sitting in circles with other women, being a woman amongst women. And I'm sure you remember that the particular woman who really captured me that day was the woman I called my farm friend, and she had been sold into systems of prostitution, which was really just paid rape and male entitlement to female bodies by her parents because they were so poor. And that was, you know, she was the girl, so she was the disposable child, and they sold her, and the money was allegedly sent back home. Who knows if it was? And she had managed, you know, because it's also this indentured servitude, and the brothel keepers, you know, take note of this, Americans who want to decriminalize brothel keeping, pimping, and and men who want to purchase vaginas, rectums, and mouths. Would say, oh, you have to pay the rent for your room. Oh, you have to pay for your medicine. Oh, you have to pay for your food. You have to pay for everything. And they would take that out of the scant money that they would actually allocate to her. Anyway, she was able to buy her way out of this brothel. And then she went home to her son, and she had no sustainable way of supporting her son and herself. And so the only thing she knew to do, the only place that she'd ever been, and she was a stained, ruined woman because she had been prostituted, she went back to the brothel.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I were there the day that her first day back, and she still smelled of the fresh countryside, right? And that was a really shattering experience. And she was devastated. You know, she was stoic, but she was devastated. And when we walked out of the brothel, there was a white man, so some, you know, Westerner, who was there to exploit women. And I remember just this posture of entitlement. He had his arm up, and he was towering over this very young adolescent girl who he was, you know, getting ready to rape. And so that's, you know, that's what life in the brothels is like, and we should all be aware of that. And yeah, around that time I told you about how Harvey sexually harassed me in the Peninsula Hotel, and how I stood up to him, and I managed to get out of that hotel room without him getting his hands on me. And you were very encouraging and validating of me, and you said, you know, you have to tell everybody. And the truth is, I am a teller, you know. And I was molested for the first time that I remember when I was 7. And I say remember because I was assaulted in a Kmart here in Franklin, Tennessee. I had on my cheerleader uniform. My mom's told me the story. That man is still a registered sex offender in Tennessee, but I don't remember it because the brain is clever and ingenious and has these protective mechanisms. And so I have a trauma blackout from that. And I told people about when I was 7, and the adults said, oh, he's a nice old man. That's not what he meant. You know, just the patriarchy in action and not believing girls. And so my instinct has always been to tell. And as soon as I left Harvey's hotel room, I told my dad, who was downstairs waiting for me. And he said anyway that he could tell something devastating had just happened to me by the look on my face. I told my agent, I told the people with whom I was filming Kiss the Girls that night. I told everybody, but there was no, as one of my friends said, you know, Attorney General of Hollywood to whom to report it. And then I told Variety magazine the story 2 years, almost the day before Jodie Cantor and Megan Twohey published their Pulitzer Prize winning article. And it didn't really gather any attention. There were some comments online, but it didn't get the public attention that finally the New York Times piece, which was so superb and so well researched, and they had the documentation, and then it broke. And you know, Harvey's sitting in prison for 23 or 27 years, and I'm so glad that everyone who needed to come forward about him and wanted to has had that opportunity. And as you know, I support restorative justice, and I with that process. And I still have a lawsuit against him, a business kind of lawsuit against him in California. And I'm looking forward to that judicial proceeding going forward, because it will strengthen the laws for women in the workplace in California when we win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, you did tell me, Ashley, you've forgiven him. Is that
Oh, absolutely. Because forgiveness is no favor. Forgiveness is no favor. I do it for myself. And my question is, how free do I want to be? How free do I want to be? You know, and today I want to be free. I don't give anyone the privilege of living rent free between my 2 ears. That is precious real estate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Ashley,
I think about it, you know, the part that's hard to swallow still is how much he damaged my career, you know, my economic opportunities and my creative opportunities. That part is, you know, I live the consequences of that every day. You know, my pocketbook is different, my creative arc is different, and there's a sadness there about that, you know. But that's, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ashley, we're getting a lot of questions about you and your health and recovering from your accident. in the Congo, and everyone wants to know how you're feeling,
Yeah.
how you are.
That's very kind. I really appreciate the love and the support, and the outpouring of care that was there for me was very encouraging to my spirit. It was unexpected, and there was so much kindness, which I deeply appreciated. I'm sitting here looking at there's a day bed here on my sleeping porch, and we put that in another room and brought a double bed downstairs, and I lived on that double bed for 3 months, while my leg recovered from my surgeries. And it was a hard 3 months. It was a hard 3 months, it was really painful. But my leg is great. The bones are all knitted back together. They're very strong. As one of my loved ones said, my leg is bionic with all the metal that's in it. And, part of the astonishing part of my recovery is that my foot moves, because my foot was paralyzed. And the expectation was that it would take a year for it to maybe begin to move, and that I probably would have to have all these tendon transfer surgeries, they're called. But 4 months to the day, and on my anniversary with my partner, my foot started to move. And we were like, the duvet was moving at the bottom of the bed. I was like, what is that? I was like, hey, what's going on down there? What is that? And then we picked the duvet up, and it was my foot. And it was just this unexpected treat, more than a treat. It was life-changing. And when I saw Dr. Levin up at University of Pennsylvania, who's the founder of orthoplasty, he said words like astonishing and unprecedented, and he even used the M word. He said it was a miracle, and he's used to telling 23-year-old professional athletes that their foot will never move again. And I'm just like a foot-moving fool over here. So it's going very well, and I'm looking forward to losing all the weight I've gained. That's not going to be fun or easy, because that's been a part of the experience too. And I just get sick a lot because of the inflammation in my system. There was a big shock to my system, and I got mono, I got whooping cough. So all that is part of it too. So it wasn't just the bones and the nerve. It was just a massive, massive shock to my system. But I am, the leg is good, and everyone's care and concern has buoyed me.
Mm-hmm. Ashley, there is nobody that I know that knows about self-care as well as you do. And, all those years that we were traveling together, I learned so much from you about how to care for yourself, how much sleep to get, what aromatherapy to use, what tea to drink, what, Chinese remedies. I remember buying pharmacies and chemists and all these, wonderful places that we were in the middle of nowhere. And we would look at all the different herbs and potions, and you really understand self-care, and you have taught me about self-care and how important it is. So I'm thrilled that you've made such an incredible recovery, and you are so strong, Ashley, strong in mind, strong in body. You do the most incredible yoga moves I've ever seen. So I have to you're going to be back to normal in no time at all. Ashley, I have a lot of questions also coming from people who know how many times you have been to the Congo, and your love of animals. I know they're a very, very important part of your life. And you and I were also talking about the bonobos. I hope I'm saying that right. And what we can learn from them. We on the podcast,
Yes.
Sex, Body, Soul, by the way. Please listen to Ashley's podcast. It's amazing. And so Ashley goes often to the Congo, and that's unfortunately where she had her accident. But you've recently been again, and you just got back. Tell us what you have learned from animals around our sexual wellness.
Yeah. So thank you for talking about the bonobos. And for those of you who don't know, they're a primate, and they're the least known primate. Monkeys have tails, bonobos don't have tails. And and they live and exist only in the DRC, and they're sort of south of the Congolese River. They're highly endangered. There's maybe 15 to 30,000 left. Their habitat is decreasing. There's a lot of pressure on their ecosystem and environment. And very closely related. And dig this, if a bonobo looks at us, she is seeing her close relative, closer than if she looks at a gorilla. And bonobos are totally unique in that they are peaceful, they are egalitarian, they are co-dominant, matriarchal co-dominant, but a female is usually the ranking individual. And unlike chimpanzees, with whom we also share the majority of our DNA, 100% of all female chimpanzees are severely beaten by males. And 100% of all female chimpanzees are sexually coerced. Female bonobos live totally free from male aggression, male violence, and male sexual coercion. They have choice in their copulations, and this is because they have female coalitions that undergird a stable and peaceful society. And who do we want to be? You know, who do we want to be? And they're so delightful. You know, they're funny, they play, they wrestle, they swing, I mean, they're just the most incredible species.
Well,
It's just unbelievable to get to be amongst them.
But don't they have great sex as well?
Yeah, they're a highly sexual species. They're highly sexual. But the thing is, you know, a female may be solicited by a male, and she'll think it over, and she might go, yeah, and go out to, you know, the edge of a limb or up a tree or over there, and indicate that she does want to copulate, or she might say no and blow him off. And either way, that's the way she rolls. And
there is no violence. There's no domestic violence within the...
No, zero, never, absolutely does not happen.
And Ashley...
And then she also solicits if she decides she wants to. If she wants a copulation, then she's like, hey, dude, what's up? I'm going to present myself and see if you're interested in copulating with me. So it works both ways.
So I bet there's no slut shaming in that regard, right?
No, none.
So when you go on your trips to do this type of activism, do the locals understand how endangered they also are? And I wonder what the local communities do. And do you interact with them at all? Do you interact with the humans when you're on?
Oh, yeah, we're very close. So it's very difficult to get where so there are 3 bonobo research reserves in the world: Wamba, Louis Katal, and Kokolapori, and ours is Kokolapori. And it's very difficult to get there. It takes 2 days to arrive, and it involves a bush plane and then a motorbike ride on a very itty-bitty narrow dirt path. It's like the ribbon of path on which the motorbike wheel must ride is like threading a needle, and then there's this big trough next to it where the water goes during the rainy season. It's harrowing. And then there's a long walk to get into camp. And there are 5 villages in whose ancestral forest the bonobos range, and we're very close with the 5 villages. We stay in the villages when we first arrive. We stay in the villages when we're coming out. I mean, I've got my friends in the villages. We have very good relations with the men. I mean, it's all male leadership. It's very patriarchal, but the notable, the tribal elders, the clan chiefs. We're very close with the villages. Yes.
So Ashley, you and I started our activism journey together, and we started working on HIV almost 20 years ago. Now, HIV is now being scientifically proven that it actually started with animals, namely monkeys. And it in gathering this information, which I've been learning a lot about lately, with certainly with how pandemics have been spreading. We do know that bats, rats, and pangolins were responsible for the coronavirus. But I thought that it was a myth that monkeys really were the beginning of HIV. And if we had known that 20 years ago, we could have actually stopped or greatly slowed down the pandemic like we did with Ebola and SARS and many of the other diseases. But I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
You know a lot more about it than I do. I don't really have a lot of information. I mean, I know that we don't physically interact with the bonobos. We follow them at a 5 to 7 meter distance. We wear masks to make sure that we don't transmit anything to them because we're so similar and our respiratory systems are so similar. We're exceedingly cautious about possibly transmitting something to them. And when they're sick, we observe that they're sick. I mean, they do catch things. Typically, we assume from the villagers because the villages does put some pressure on the forest. And yeah, that's kind of all I know what to say about that. You have much more expertise in the area than I do.
Well, I just think the similarities and just the way the world works together, whether it be for healthcare, whether it be for conservation, whether it be for saving our planet, saving the planet, prevention is where it's at. And,
Absolutely.
Prevention of pregnancies, prevention of pandemics. And, as you know, I am a huge fan of coalitions. I'm a huge fan of collectives. I'm a huge fan of women working together. You've worked with myself and Melinda Gates with Maverick Collective, and now we've got the Body Agency Collective, and it's just a proven model. And having done this research recently on pandemics, because look what the coronavirus has cost the world, also in our mental health, and it really has affected the entire world. So if we can prevent, then that's what we should be doing. So watch this space, everyone. And if anyone is interested in learning anything more about anything that Ashley and I talk about today, shoot us a DM. And I will quickly say, for those who've just joined, we're giving away Ashley's book, All That Is Bitter and Sweet. And it's an incredible memoir, a signed book from Ashley. And DM us with your email address and you might be the lucky winner. We'll announce the winners on social media. Ashley, you are very vocal about, and we're getting a lot of comments about this, about being, sadly, a 3-time rape survivor. And you have helped so many women. And, we're getting constantly notes from people who are listening. You and I have talked about this a lot, certainly on our travels, of being, and it's very, very hard when you've gone on one of these journeys and you've sat with these women, like we talked about in Thailand. It's very, very hard to put that in a bucket and then come home and, look after yourself and have your own sexual intimacy and wellness. But when you are a survivor, when you are actually a survivor, I can't imagine those buckets. And you've told me a lot about how you've done this. And so we're getting a lot of questions about that. So any comment on that would be wonderful.
Sure. I think it's a vital question, and it's and vital means necessary for life, and sexual wellness is necessary for spiritual life, and for connection and belonging. And it's all about the difference between violence, dominance, and control, which is what sexual violence is, and what rape and assault is. It's not about sex so much. It's about violence, dominance, and control. And then, sex or intimacy with a partner is about safety and expression and longing and play. And it's very different when you're with an equal partner and you are expressing yourself in this intimate way. Those are entirely different creatures. And we conflate the two, and because we may be in the same instrument, the body, and so it's very easy to conflate the two, but they're entirely different. And I just think I was incredibly blessed from the beginning. When that old man sat me on his lap and did whatever he did, I knew I knew it wasn't okay. And when I, became a teenager and started to experience my sexuality, I knew that was not what he had done to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I was very blessed. Of course, I had crappy boyfriends and who did shitty things, and I had to figure out consent and standing up for myself and what my boundaries were. And I tolerated some unacceptable behavior along the way. But as I learned and got stronger and became more autonomous, and I began to have egalitarian relationships with equal partners, and I experienced that safety,
Mm-hmm.
I really grew and developed and understood that, there's a difference between trauma, violence, dominance, and control, and sexual intimacy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're getting a lot of comments that sexual abuse has killed libido and desire. And
Oh, I'm so sorry.
yeah, no, and it is such a common issue, and your sexual intimacy is such an important part of your wellness.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that, Ashley. And how do you care?
And I would just I don't want to tell people what to do or make assumptions about what kind of professional help or intervention people have tried. Non-dominant handwriting has always been very powerful for me, and I've used EMDR, and I think you go to emdr.com or something like that, and you can find a very skilled provider in your area. You want someone who has a lot of hours and a lot of expertise, and there are so many trauma-informed, evidence-based kinds of interventions out there. And I have availed myself of all kinds of professional modalities and wisdom traditions, and they've been very supportive for me. And I would encourage everyone to try to get the kind of help that you can. And a lot of people, they do provide scholarships, or they work on a sliding scale basis, to accommodate people who can't necessarily afford to pay full price.
Mm-hmm.
Price doesn't have to be a barrier, just keep going. And also go to metoomovement.org. I mean, Tarana's website has phenomenal resources. It has videos. You can put in your zip code and find practitioners in your area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We also have them at the body.
EMDR.
Yeah. A lot of people are asking about how to enter for the book, and please don't DM the social media. Just go to thebodyagency.com and you can enter your email address in there. We don't want all email addresses. That's not secure. So just go to the Body Agency, put your email in, and we'll communicate back with you should you be the winner. So just wanted to clarify that. Ashley, in all the trips that you've done, is there any one particular trip that really stands out for you? And a moment where the penny dropped for you?
Yeah. And so, of course, it's hard to pick one. I'm going to cry. So I'm going to pick 3 quick examples. Oh God, let's see here. Literally, God, like God be with me. Let me tell this in a way that honors the people who have trusted me.
If you want God, Archbishop Tutu.
Yeah. I mean, the orphanage in Kenya, like people have asked. We recently played this storytelling game where, sitting with the family and you are asked different questions, and I got the question, what's the worst thing you ever did? And I said, walking out of an orphanage, walking out of an orphanage.
So hard. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so hard.
I'm with
Um, so there's this, an anecdote that we share on the podcast is in one of the brothels in Mumbai, and I saw police and I thought, oh, how nice. They're here, so self-centered, so self-centered. They were here to make sure that I stayed safe. And I was like, oh, I realized, no, they were there to rape women. So these systems of complicity and structural discrimination, structural sexual harassment, and that was very eye-opening for me. And then, there was, when I went to Ukraine 6 years ago, there was a family with whom I spent the afternoon, and the mother, the woman, had gotten help for intimate partner violence through UNFPA. And she had found that through the psychosocial support she accessed, she had been able to leave a violent man who beat her. And obviously we know that when children experience violence, they experience trauma, and it affects the neurobiology of their developing brains, and boys who witness violence are more likely to become batterers themselves. And this woman was the most gentle, tender, kind woman. And she was like feeding me vegetables from her garden and putting them in my mouth. And there were 3 generations living in the house together, and they had a rope swing over the creek, and then the field was full of wildflowers, and we were laying down together. And it was they just made me a part of their family, and I'll always remember their generosity and how included I felt. And then what they're going through today in Ukraine, and I don't know if they're safe. I don't know if they're safe. So that's something that really stands out to me. And there's so many, and there are many that are far more gritty and dramatic and horrific. But remember when we were when we were at the HIV/AIDS orphanage and the children danced for us.
Oh yes.
We
just cried and cried and
we cried and cried and cried. And part of what was so beautiful about that is it was a Buddhist orphanage, but there was this Father Michael was there, this Mary Knoll priest. And when the Buddhist monks went to meditate in front of this large golden Buddha, he went and meditated with them. And I was like, how can he do that with his Catholic faith? And I thought, this is ecumenical. This is about something larger than all of us. I've just learned so much on these trips I've just learned so much.
That was in Thailand.
As Father Tutu says, that was in Thailand. Yes. We pray for those who help, and we pray for those who do not.
Yeah. So I remember that particular trip. That was so many years ago, but we were in a hospital, which was also a retreat center for people who were it was a hospice in the last stages of HIV. And I remember the Buddha that Ashley is talking about, this huge, big gold Buddha on top of a mountain. And there were bags and bags and bags and bags and bags of ashes.
Yes.
Thousands
of people who have died of HIV, and their bones had been rejected by their families because they had died of HIV/AIDS.
And all the villages.
And that was what they meditated in front of.
Yes. And so the monks would go on a daily basis and bless the bags and pray and meditate, as Ashley said. But I remember that the people living under the mountain in the villages had all moved away because they were worried about the water that was running down from the hospice into the village, where all these people had been shunned because they had HIV and were rejected by their family. So many stories. You're right. And again, please read Ashley's book because all in there. Actually, sadly, we are running out of time. But I do have a question. I'm sure it's from one of the girls at the Body Agency. She wants to know what you think of the Buppet. So
I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome. So listen to something that I learned.
Oh, tell me.
Vulva means shame. Vulva means shame.
Where did you learn that? I've never heard that before.
So in the Greek or the Latin or whatever, it means shame. And so we are going to change it to the glory. We
Yes.
are renaming it the glory. So it was this very, you can look it up in the New York Times. There was this very lengthy article by this medical student who, when studying anatomy, learned that vulva means shame. And they were so appalled, and they were, thank you.
Yeah.
And there's no male equivalent for male genitalia that means to be disgusted or to be ashamed or anything like that. And first of all, it needs to be changed,
Yes.
and we need to reject that wholeheartedly. And in the
Yes.
meantime, we just need to start calling it the glory.
Well, I love all of that. We should embrace our vulvas. We should teach our children about their vulvas. It's an incredible part of our body. And actually, I don't know whether I told you this, but you do have a buffet, but these are made by
I
the
have
most
one.
incredible women in Southeast Asia who are disabled and cannot get jobs
Mm,
because they're disabled. And
mm.
so the orders of the Buffets go to support them. So please, everybody, go and get your Buffet now at the Body Agency. Um, Ashley,
Yes.
sadly, we are running out of time. Is there anything else that you wish to say?
I just want to say thank you for being you. You are a unique individual, and I mean that as the highest compliment. And you've made a big impression on my life, and I appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you, Ashley. I really appreciate you, as you know, and I know that we're only halfway through this crazy journey, and you've been such an inspiration to me and so many other people, and I think inspired a lot of others to do what you do. And what I mean is inspire a lot of people also from the entertainment world to find a cause, to get behind it. And you've just demonstrated the impact that you can do. You've helped raise hundreds of millions of dollars. You've helped break stigmas. You've helped women get access to much needed health products, services, and education. And I know that it's just the beginning of what you
Mm.
do and what we can do collectively. So again, last time, everyone. Oops. We are having a little giveaway of Ashley's book, All That Is Bitter and Sweet. It's a beautiful book full of incredible, inspiring stories. And if you go to thebodyagency.com, send us your email address and enter into the competition, we will send you a book, a signed book from Ashley. Also, please watch the podcast. It's Sex, Body, and Soul. And the podcast has literally gone around the world. I think today was ferocious with media. I've never seen anything like it. So, Ashley, lots of love to you, my darling, and to be continued. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Now I get to go watch a Kentucky basketball game, so it's a nice double header for me.
Enjoy. Bye, guys. Thank you. Good
Bye.
night.
Lots of love. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you.